In this video, we are going to find the valid third transaction. Hello, I'm Jagan from Grow with Data. I'm posting this video to share my knowledge in SQL with you. If this assists you in interview preparation anyways, I will be happy. Let's see the data set and you can talk about the question in detail. So we are given the table transactions which has user ID, spent amount and the transaction date. So we are asked to write a solution to find the third transaction of every user where the spending on the previous two transaction is lower than the spending on the third transaction. Let's create the table first. Okay. So we have the table here, and if you see the records, we have user ID 1 who got 4 transactions. So what we have to find is we have to get the third transaction where the previous two transactions are less than the third transaction. So we have $65 here. So 49 and 7 are less than 65. So this is a valid transaction. So we have to show this one. If you see the user 2, we have only 2 transactions which is not eligible. If you see the transaction 3, we have 3 transactions here. But if you see the third transaction, it's $7, but the previous 2 transactions are greater than 7. So it's not valid. When you see the fifth user ID 5, we got 6 transactions. Of the third transaction, $71 and 23 and 59 are less than that. Same like 8. So $85 is greater than the previous 2 transactions. So of this data set, we have only 3 users who are eligible for the criteria saying that for the third transaction, the previous 2 transactions should be less than the third one. Okay. Now let's see how to address this. Let's comment this out. So let's directly go to the Windows function now. Okay. So let's start with the row number which we are familiar with. Select user ID, spend, transaction date from transactions, right? And then we go with the row number over, it's on every user, right? So partition by user ID, order by user ID, transaction date as order rank from transactions. So we know about the row number, how it behaves, right? So for every transaction, we have a row number. So for user ID 1, based on the transaction date, we sequence to 1, 2, 3 and 4. So we need the third record, so we can use the order rank where it's equal to 3, right? Okay. So how to get the third transaction? So you say order rank equal to 3, right? Simple as that. Use this as a CTE table. Order details as, you say select user ID, spend, transaction date from order details. We can just say this is supposed to be the third transaction, right? Where set 3 dot order rank equal to 3, right? So let's put the alias name so it's easy to do further. So what we are doing, first we are doing the ranking based on the transaction date of every user, and then we are getting only the third transaction of all the users. So 2 has only 2 transactions, so 2 got filtered out. So we got 1, 3, 5 and 8. So now we have to see if the previous 2 transactions like 1 and 2 are having the dollar spent which is less than 3. So what we do a self join, inner join order details again. So first we go with the set 2 on set 2 dot user id equal to set 3 dot user id. So in that way we connect the users, and then how will you say the first one is row number 3 and second one is row number 2? We have the order rank and set 2 dot order rank equal to 2, right? So this will get the second transaction, and the another condition is the dollar value, set 3 dot spend should be greater than set 2 dot spend, right? And we get the user id, spend and transaction date already. Okay, so now we get 1, 5 and 8. The 3 got filtered out, right? The 3 got filtered out because the previous transactions are greater, right? The 13 is greater than 7, so it got filtered out. Now we have to check the first transaction. It's going to be the same. We can just put and. So I'm going to make a difference as a inner join. So we can put and. So sorry, copy this, paste here, and then you are going to do another self join for the first row where we say the first dot user id equal to third user id, and we don't need all, we just say set 1 equal to the rank is 1 and the spend for third should be greater than 1. So if we move here, I get 1, 5 and 8, and if you see the values, $65 for 1 and $71 for 5 and $85 for 8. So it works fine. So what we did, we just did a rank, and then using the rank we just filter out the first row, second row and the third row, and then we checked if the spend value is greater than the previous transactions. So it looks simple, right? But the negative side is we use the main table in the CT table, and then we are doing a self join 3 times here, right? So let's look into a better option here. Most of the time we say the Windows function helps a lot, but here we get the answer using the row number, but still let's see if we can do something better than this. So to understand the other Windows function which we are going to introduce now are the lead and lag. Right? So the name itself says, when you say lead, that means that function will give you information of records which is ahead of the current row, like the future, you can say lead. Lag means it will give you access to the previous rows from the current row. If you are the row number 3, lag will give you information about 2 and 1. If you say lead, it will give you information about 4 and 5. Okay, so that's called the lead and lag. Lead is in the front, lag is in the back. Let's see how that function works. Okay, so now we have the row number, right? We use the same thing here. We can just make it as date for the space constraint. Okay, and the row number here, and we know how it works, right? It just gives you here. For understanding, we filter out only one user where user id equal to 1. Okay, so we get the first user id. We got 4 records. Now I am going to introduce another Windows function which is called lead. It's same like the row number, but let's see how it works. Lead over partition by user ID, order by user ID and transaction date. As we can say it's a lead, right? So we can say next one. So what makes it to understand we have to go with the first row or the second row ahead of our current row? We just say spend and 1. That means with this current row you find the spend value which is ahead of the current row based on the order by statement, user ID and transaction date. Let's run this and see. So if you see the first row 7.44, the next row is 49.78, right, which comes here, the next one. And for 49.78, the next row is 65, which comes here. If you do the same way, if you say lead and if you give 2, right, so next 2, if you see here, the first row 7.44, the next row is 49, the second row is 65. So the next 2 will give you the $65 value here. And if you see 49, the second row is 96, which is here. For the other 2 rows, we don't have the second row, right? 65, we have only one row ahead of it. The second row is null. So it brings you null. For 96, you don't have any other records in the front. So it just gives null for the first and the second lead. So the lag works the same way, but it just brings you the previous record. So instead of saying next, you can say previous. So if you see this 7.44, there is no previous record, so it just brings null here. For 49.78, the previous record is 7.44, which is here, and we don't have the second one, so the second one is null. This for 65, we got the previous row 49 and the second previous is 7.44. So what we need is we have to find the third row and then what is the value for the first previous one and the next previous one, right. So this one is what we need, right. The same row we can get, which is the position of the row, which is third, and what is the previous value, what is the next to previous value. So we can use the same function for our need. Okay. So how to work on this? So we can use this as our CTE function. Okay. With order details as, let's take out the filter. We can, so same like the row number, we use the lag for this first row and the second row, use that as a CTE function. Now we are using the same CTE function order details, where the order rank should be the third row, and since we have the previous 1 and 2, we just say the spend should be greater than previous 1 and spend greater than previous 2. So that's what the condition is, right. So it should be a third row and it should be greater than the previous 2 rows. Now we can get the same information, the user ID, spend and transaction date. Alias name set 3 should be fine, and you can just give order by based on the user, order by 1 semicolon. So when you run this, it gives error, column set transaction date in okay. So we give the transaction date, okay. Now if you see, you get the user ID 1, 5 and 8 with the spent amount and the transaction date. So in our previous example, we use only the rank function and did the self join thrice, but here if you see, we use the main table once, and then we use the CT table again only once, but we use the columns before the previous 2 rows into the same row. So we can easily say the condition here, the order rank is 3 and the spend should be greater than the previous 2 transactions. So in that way you save the self join of 3 times, right? Now it looks so simple, right? Okay, I prefer doing the lead and lag function if you are asked to compare between the previous rows, provided you know how to use the partition and the order by in the lead and lag function. Hope you like this video, and thanks for watching.